Command and accountability. There are several key concepts from the National Incident Management System that we will review. We'll talk about unity of command, contrast that with unified command. We'll talk about span of control and how the incident management system is scalable and flexible to keep span of control within control. We'll talk about what are divisions and what are groups and how we typically use them in our system. And we will talk about how freelancing is bad, evil, and you should not do it. So unity of command as a concept means that everyone has only one supervisor. Everyone has a supervisor and they only have one supervisor. That way orders and requests can flow up and down the chain through that supervisor, and we can then accomplish the incident objectives by that sort of a method. Unity of command is incredibly important. So unified command is a different thing. That means that we have multiple different disciplines or agencies, and there's a command person from each of those agencies or disciplines, and those command people are co-located. They're right next to each other, and decisions are coming out of a command post that's staffed by and occupied by decision makers for each of those agencies. So think about, in a simple thing, a motor vehicle crash on the interstate. We have state patrol, we have fire department, we have EMS, and so there should be a decision maker from each of those that are co-located. They're standing next to each other, or at least checking with each other to make sure that things are coordinated. That's unified command. You also hear of that on a large scale event where it may involve government officials and people from Road and Bridge or Power and Light or all these diverse situations. That's unified command. That's a whole different deal. But unity of command is the thing you need to be very clear on, and that is that you always have only one supervisor. Span of control is the next concept with incident management system. Typically, most of the time a person can handle 3 to 5 different things. Maybe the range is 3 to 7. Everybody kind of knows their number after you do it for a while. Mine's probably a 4, 3 or 4. Once I get to a 5th or 6th thing, then I'm not really in control, and I'm starting to have experience an excessive span of control. And so that's when I decide that I need to unfold the incident management system. I need to delegate some things to a subordinate supervisor who's responsible for that thing that's causing me trouble. So what kind of things cause you trouble? Well, things that are rapidly changing, things that need a great deal of communication. There's a bunch of back and forth communication, and it is tying up too much of your time in order for you to maintain an overview of the other 3, 4, 5, 6 things that you're responsible for, or any one thing that's extremely complex. So I would give an example of a dynamic thing is water supply. In the initial stages of a residential structure fire with us, there are a number of things going on with water supply in that they're changing and they're requiring a lot of communication. And so that's one of the first things that it feels right to delegate down and create a water supply supervisor that handles that sort of stuff. Complex things I would say would be extrication, at least in my mind, extrication. If I'm going to be managing the details at the task level of what tool we're using and what technique we're using at a given time, that's a complex thing that's going to require too much focus, and then I will lose focus of the other things. So at least in my view, the thing to do when your span of control is out of control is to start delegating things that are either dynamic and requiring a lot of communication or are complex, and to where you get your span of control back within control. One of the best ways to do that is to use divisions or groups. So divisions are a division supervisor is responsible for all things in a geographic area. Maybe it's the Charlie side of a structure. Maybe it's the red car in a 2-vehicle extrication where the cars are not immediately right next to each other. Groups are responsible for a function all over the scene. So groups are not geographically restrained, and divisions are not functionally restrained. But a group supervisor, again, water supply is a common example. Water supply group supervisor would then be responsible for getting water to the attack engine, dealing with the supply engine, dealing with the fill side engine, dealing with the tankers, and all the logistics of all that. And so a water supply group supervisor tends to work out very nicely. Divisions, again, could also be on a natural cover fire, where you have a large area that you're trying to be responsible for. It, in many cases, is more effective to have a north division and a south division. And the same with extrications, and the same in some cases with complex structure fires. It may be helpful to have an interior division that handles all things that are going on, whether it's fire suppression, overhaul, salvage, ventilation, all things within a geographic area, interior of the structure. So those are examples of how we use divisions and groups to deal with the span of control that's out of control. And so this whole thing breaks down if people just start doing stuff. And so many of you are very resourceful and you're adapt and overcome type of folks. And if you see something that needs to be done, you want to just take care of it. What you've got to do is say something to your supervisor. If you see something, say something, but it needs to be to your supervisor and work within your supervisor in those assignments. It may be that the supervisor says, yes, just take care of that, or they need to check with command to see if someone else is going to take care of that or if that's a current priority. But freelancing is bad. It leads to loss of accountability, it leads to loss of effectiveness, and we just shouldn't do it. So accountability is one of the main reasons that we use an incident management system. It's why we have this structure. We do it primarily we use the system primarily in order to take care of the incident, execute the priorities and the tactics to handle the incident. But accountability of our people is a main focus as well. So supervisors are accountable for anybody under their supervision. If you're a crew leader, you're accountable for yourself and the other members of your crew. If you're a division supervisor or a group supervisor, then you're accountable for all those people that are working under you. Now, we use the command board and our helmet accountability tags as a tool to help us with accountability, but we've been doing accountability well before we had command boards. And the command board is an excellent, very helpful tool, but you've got to maintain accountability even if you're not carrying a command board with you. And that in that situation, an example would be if we've made you a group supervisor, it may not be a situation where you have ready access to a command board for your group or your division. That would be ideal, but it's not practical, particularly in an interior fire attack. To give the interior supervisor a command board is not something that's really become very practical. So accountability is facilitated by the command board and helmet tags, but accountability is based on a supervisor knowing who they've got with them. And so again, the same thing, you only have one supervisor, and that helps us with accountability. So in summary, unless otherwise directed, you're accountable to your supervisor. If your supervisor changes, or we put that supervisor and you under a group or a division, then we'll tell you. Crew leaders are typically the supervisor. They report directly to the IC unless we've needed to unfold or unpack or expand the incident management system and we've created different supervisors. And assignments come from your soup. No freelancing. Freelancing gets people hurt and causes the incident to not be managed as efficiently and effectively as we need it to be.